Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm Alex Whiteley, of course it is. Who else? And today I'm going to be sitting with a good friend of mine who I've made over the last 2 years throughout the biscuit and things that we've been doing. Maggie Love and Andrew Bannerman, who we met at Darwin's house for Darwin's lunch, didn't we? That was really nice.
Very good.
Yes. Now, before we get into this is going to sound like a very odd thing for me to do, but I have an apology to make, and I'm going to use this audio and send this to the gentleman. Before I had my accident and mashed up my ankle, I was meant to do an interview with Bob Bergen, who is the voice for Porky Pig. And when that happened, I had to kind of try and force myself away from work a little bit. So I didn't have as much access to my emails. Now, that means I didn't have access to my schedule. So I kind of missed my interview with Porky Pig. And I feel so guilty about it because we spent so many years building a great reputation when it comes to people, great contributors to culture from around the world. And I feel terrible about it. And it's only since I'm sort of catching up now, I've looked at my emails and gone, oh my God, we had this thing and we didn't do it. So to Bob, I want to offer my heartfelt apologies for what happened. That is not how we operate. And hopefully we can work something out. But if you don't want to work with us again, I appreciate it. We wasted his time. He saved the Sunday just for us. So.
Oh, I'm sure he'll come back, Alex.
Yeah.
I'm sure he will.
People that know me, they'll probably understand. You'll probably be like, oh, well, these things happen. And Al is, I've built a good reputation with these things.
You were really poorly.
Yeah, it was hard because I'm a very independent person. I want to get up and do stuff, and even now, I'm crutching around Shrewsbury with this heavy bag on my back because I love doing what I do. It's an absolute passion of mine. So, to Bob, I very much apologise. This is coming from the Shrewsbury Biscuit, but from us at You Suck, to you, I'm very sorry. And we are going to be talking to Maggie and to Andrew today about years of service that you guys have put together to help develop young thespians and young actors over the years of working with Shrewsbury Youth Theatre. What I think is the best idea to do, though, is to go for you both and talk about your careers and your history and how you sort of fit into the world of theatre yourselves. So Andrew, how far back does this go, your career of working with theatre?
Well, I was born a long time ago now, but my parents were both professional actors, so I had what you might call a head start or no chance of not having some of that blood in me. And sure enough, when I first trod the boards at my very first school, and I think I played Alice in Wonderland, if I remember correctly.
School, right?
I didn't have very much to do because they concentrated on the other characters. But I remember being terrified and forgetting my words and all that sort of stuff. And then through the years, I just enjoyed it more and more, really. And once I became adult, I decided I was going to be a teacher, rightly or wrongly. That's another story. And then I had and I taught English and drama, and I took lots of students, young people, to plays and things. I remember at one school they used to. I got a reputation for taking them across London in the tube train, and in those days you could smoke in the tube, and there were those who thought this is a really good way of smoking, and so I had a lot of kids who, not sure how keen they were on the theatre, but they loved the smoky bit beforehand. Anyway,
back in the day.
Anyway, then I had a very good break much later in my life when I left the classroom and was given the opportunity to do what we call theatre in education. And that's another big story, which I won't go into now. But anyway, that launched me, and I did professional jobs of various kinds. I trained myself, actually, by going to numerous courses and a year at the Sherman Theatre in Cardiff. So I got professional training, sort of, and I've got professional jobs. I've done work in films and stuff like that.
When it comes to performing and being in front of an audience, do you think it's a vocation? It's something that you're born to do. I feel like when you perform. I mean, I've spoken to so many actors, actresses over the years, and writers, producers. But when you perform, it seems like you have to be born to do it. You can't force yourself to do it. You have to want to, right?
Yes, you do. Yeah, because some people, you think, well, they'd be great actors. I mean, the other passion I've had, as Maggie knows well, is tennis. And sometimes when I'm on the tennis court, you hear somebody say something and you think, my God, that's a natural theatre voice. And they don't realise it. And when you tell them, look, you'd be really good on the stage, they go, no, I'm terrified of doing it. I would never do that in my life. But actually, there is a natural voice that some people have. And when you do theatre, you do need to, as they say, project, which you don't now. But that's important. And it is that much is natural. But you can train. Most of it is what you help yourself to do, which is where we come in with the young people, because I think what they're learning is not just how to be an actor, but all sorts of life skills. I mean, the wonderful thing about SYT, and Maggie will say much more about this, is that it welcomes everybody, anybody. And we generally have a wide spectrum of students. Of all different kinds. I mean, some of the most unlikely ones. I remember one chap who's long gone, and I hope is now a successful and happy adult, who you couldn't see most of the time because he wore his hair so long and so over his face that it was really difficult. And you think, why on earth did he join? But there was something that made him do it. And I'm sure we helped. And he left a happier and perhaps more rounded person.
And he was with us for 5 years.
5 years, that's right.
I think that's really great, though, that you've been able to nurture young minds out of the most bizarre places sometimes, you know, and that is a brilliant testament to what you guys do for young minds, and you know it comes from all kinds of places, doesn't it? But that kid obviously really wanted to be there, didn't he? You know, he like theatre was obviously his draw too. So that's really smart. I like that. Maggie, you have an amazing career. We've never documented it on the Biscuit. We've talked about it a lot. So where do you fall into theatre? Where does it begin for you?
Gosh.
I mean, bearing in mind we do about a 40-minute, hour long show.
Okay, I'll try and be brief. So at 2.5, Mum threw me into a dance class, and that led to me then going onto the stage when I was about 4 years old, and that was the Old Granada Theatre in Shrewsbury. I performed in a variety of different shows in and around Shrewsbury, toured with big companies, mainly as a dancer. I showed an interest in drama, and there was a local theatre company just as I was becoming a teenager that just set up Tempest at the Old Mulberry Theatre. Andrew's grinning because he'll remember those days as well. And that's where I got a little bit of drama training as such, and certainly got an opportunity to act. But I also got to act on a play that Andrew directed. It was Romeo and Juliet.
Nice.
And it was at the old primary boys' school, and he needed some girls. He managed to persuade the headmaster, I guess, to bring the girls in. Do you remember?
Yes. There was an awkward business with your headmistress, but we'll pass that over. Yes. Anyway, we had these wonderful girls, and Maggie shone as one of the girls. She didn't. You had no real part, did you? But you were one of the girls who made the scene, and I'm so sorry.
It's absolutely fine. You can take it if you need to.
No. Sorry.
You're absolutely fine.
So that was Romeo and Juliet between Andrew and I when I was a teenager. And I think that was probably my first exposure to performing in Shakespeare. So I knew I really enjoyed classical theatre. Anyway, off I went to London. I had an opportunity to become a choreographer, so I went for it. I ended up in the West End. I really loved working with dancers, but most especially with actors. And so I had the opportunity then to develop a movement technique to work with actors in training. And I had an absolute passion for the history of dance. And that came about from my understanding of Shrewsbury dancing master John Weaver from the 17th century. And I wanted to know what those dances were about. So I trained with a lady called Belinda Quirey, who ensured that I understood what the kinds of dances were that belonged in Shakespeare, in Restoration. And this was all brand new research going on at that time. So Andrew's still dealing with his phone.
I love it. It's so ironic, isn't it? You know, phone calls during the day, but the one time. No, it's absolutely fine. It's seriously.
Sorry.
It's absolutely.
So I became a specialist for actors in movement and historic dance. Now that's really specialised. But that also meant that I had an opportunity to go to the States. I went, in fact, lived there for 15 years, set up the California Shakespeare Festival there with the company. And I truly have worked on a multitude of films, documentaries, all in that very specialised area. So when I found myself back in Shrewsbury, almost 20 years ago now, and I bumped straight into Andrew on the high street, we acknowledged this lovely passion that I had for classical theatre. And then I was invited to become artistic director of Shrewsbury Youth Theatre. And I was like, well, Andrew's the ideal person to come on board and work with the text and direct the students, while I focus on the production, the whole coming together of being the producer, but most especially the movement and any dances. And almost every production we've done has had some form of dance in it, except from this one.
Oh, I wouldn't say this one doesn't have dance, because you've done some really important movement work with one of our special innovations for this production, which is in the character of Ariel, which is normally played by one actor, but in our production it's played by 4.
Oh, wow. Fantastic.
They are, I think they're the key to the production. And they're all 4 of them are young girls, pretty new to this kind of work, aren't they?
They are.
And so you've taught them a huge amount.
That's that's the experience shining through, though, isn't it? Being able to get things done in a certain amount of time with as much profession and efficiency as possible. And what I get from your story, Maggie, is like you have this amazing career, but Andrew obviously made so much of an impression on you, but in your earlier year, that you've gone around the world, literally, come back, and the first person you think of when it comes to, putting something back into community theatre is Andrew, bringing him back, which is really astonishing.
It is.
It really is astonishing.
And then the perfect trio was to bring Beverly Baker on board, who was an old schoolmate who had specialised in costume. And so we had the perfect trio, really. And 17 years ago, that was it. We pulled together and restored Shrewsbury Youth Theatre, SYT as everyone calls it. And I've now renamed it as Shropshire Youth Theatre, because the students come from all over Shropshire. And those young people love classical text. They're there because they've fallen in love with classical text. And I have to say, listening to the run-through last Sunday of Tempest, which we're producing next week at Walker Theatre, it's like it just rolls off their tongue beautifully. And a lot of that comes from the understanding that they have of the text, which, of course, is what the work that they do with Andrew. That's what makes it happen. We have parents coming out of productions, particularly Shakespeare, and they say, well, I didn't think I was going to enjoy that because I've never thought Shakespeare was my thing, but I loved it.
Well, we've all seen so many different variations on Shakespeare. I mean, there was even that Leonardo DiCaprio film years ago with
the Romeo and Juliet.
Yeah. The Echo Juliet. There's been so many. Are you fans of like keeping it classical and keeping it traditional, or do you like jazzing up a bit? I mean, I know it's not Shakespeare, but you had Benedict Cumberbatch as the modern day Sherlock a few years ago. It was groundbreaking. So are you up for mixing it up, making it
Absolutely, yeah. And
absolutely.
The Globe Theatre does it all the time and does it brilliantly. I was delighted that I was actually on the Globe Committee all those years ago, and so I'm thrilled to see it finally come to fruition and what they're doing. No, you've got to make it work for today's audience, and our production next week is very much based in the 20th century. Although it's a magical island, so it's very magical.
Well, I was reading about, because I've never seen The Tempest, I've never read it.
You must come this week.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, but we'll organise, because I was reading about it. Katie Rink's amazing article at My Shrewsbury, this is where I got a lot of my information from, and talks about Shakespeare, and this is his swan song, and it's all about magic, and and how this is your guys' swan song, because this is going to be the last time you're going to work together after 17 years.
Sadly it is, but in the trite phrase, all good things come to an end, and luckily we have waiting in the wings, and she's been tremendous help all through the productions that she's been involved in, is Lisa, and she will be taking over from Maggie and having a crack at an exciting production next year. So, nothing stops. It's just there's a change in...
Passing the torch, so to speak.
It is. It's the artistic direction, because I chose classical text for the last 17 years. And it's up now, Lisa, as our new artistic director, to make a new decision with the students, because the students have their own committee. And so we sit down with the student committee, and they are the ones that make the final decision as to whatever the next year's production is. And yes, they have made a decision for next year already, because you have to, because we've already got the theatre booked.
It takes a lot of planning,
Yeah.
I think that's a key difference, actually, between us and some other companies. And it always amazed me when I first joined SYT, what do you mean the students run it? Well, they do. And they make a decision. They make a decision as to whether they want you as director. So
I had to interview with teenagers to take on the artistic directorship.
Wow.
Truly.
Yeah. I remember we had a conversation about something similar. And this is the way it is. It's just... Because when it comes to creativity, it can come from anywhere, can't it? It can come from your peers. It can come from any sort of generation. So, I mean, it's kind of fair in a way, but at the same time, you have all this experience and all this knowledge that you can pass on. So, I'm glad, it's a difficult one, but the years that you guys have put together, it's hard to imagine how many young minds you've sculpted over the years. I was just looking back, the first performance of the Caucasian Chalk Circle, 1994. That goes.
So that's Michael Richardson's production.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay, because Michael set it up in 1993. So that's next year will be the 30th year.
Wow.
Yeah,
wow.
That's how long SYT's been going. And Lisa, who is becoming the new artistic director, was Michael Richardson's student.
Wow.
In fact, she was a student at just graduating when I took on the company, and she was with us for our first, street theatre production with the Tudor Weekend. Mm-hmm. Off she went to then do a degree in theatre, in performing arts, came back, did a bit of teaching for SYT, and then went off and did an MA. And then came back and took over the Saturday morning sessions. So she's been back and forth with SYT for the last 17 years, no problem, plus her childhood of being with Michael.
So when people think of SYT, do you think, actually, we take things seriously? There's a lot of education going in here. A
lot of our students go on into the business, not necessarily as performers. So we've got quite a few that are in costume design that have gone on to compose music, not just for theatre, but also for film. So they have a different set of skills. We've also got a lot of lawyers, I will say, students that have graduated in law. It's just the way it is.
We don't ever pretend that we're going to train kids for a professional theatre, because we know that professional theatre is a very cutthroat business. Your chances of actually becoming a professional actor, having been with any youth theatre group, are very small.
Yeah,
that's not the point. The point is to introduce you to, firstly, the skills that come with theatre, and secondly, in our case, to the texts. Introduce you to all these wonderful plays that are in our literature, and we think that's all part of a general education. So when the students leave us, they're equipped with a whole lot of skills and a whole lot of experience and a whole lot of understanding, but they're not being told, that you're going to be a professional performer.
No. And I'm glad you brought that up, actually, because I was going to say, away from theatre, what skills do you think theatre gives a student away from theatre? Whether it's projecting themselves, to improvise, to remember things, even, because you got to remember a script. I mean, there's got to be so many skills that a young person takes away from this.
Exactly.
Being part of a company is the number one thing that I work on with the students, that absolutely everybody is important as anybody else.
Yes.
There is nothing to do with the number of lines you've got or how big supposedly your part is. In fact, I get quite upset with students when they start talking in that way. And certainly when they come back and say, I've got 40 lines and they've only got 20 lines. Well, I need you. I need you, and you need to be in this production. You're needed. And you're an essential part of the whole company, and it is the whole company working together.
Yeah.
I saw a post on Instagram the other day. It was about cheerleaders, and he was talking about everybody looks at the girl on top of the pyramid, but without the people on the base, the pyramid wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
It's exactly that.
Yeah.
And it's a very important ethos. Everybody works together. Everybody is kind and is thoughtful and generous to other people there. And I'm astonished, actually, when you hear about things that happen in school and things, how wonderfully well the students work together when they're with us. And I think a lot is to do with the ethos that Maggie has set up, which she's outlined just then. And I come back to something I briefly said. It's that we do welcome anybody.
Yes.
You don't have to take an audition to get into SYT. We have a thing that we call auditions before each production, when you say which part you'd like to do and you perform a little piece that you've learnt of your own choice, and you talk about yourself and so on. We do have those, and then we decide who will play what part.
Yes.
Casting. But to get into the company, and one of the wonderful things is that, as I say, apart from the boy who hid himself, there's the
invisible child.
We've taken students of all kinds of abilities, and different characters, and make a point of including them
and giving them as many opportunities as possible. Like
absolutely.
Being able to. So one of the students has composed all the music for this production. Another student has pulled together all the singing compositions, for the songs. Another student has actually been a musician, so that one particular section we needed an interesting piece of music, and he happens to play sitar. So we've got that piece of music. Students also do all the stage management backstage, and they're a part of the costume team. And this year, we've also got students working on makeup. So they have guides, yes, they have adults behind them, but it's the students completely running the whole show, not just what you see on stage.
And do you have so let's say, because I think is it from 6 years old children can join?
Absolutely.
So from the age of 6 years old up until, I guess, 18?
18-ish. We can officially go up older than that, yes.
So from those ages, do you have a set plan for how to nurture a mind? Do you start off with different sort of curriculums at different stages?
Yes. Each group has its own focus.
Yeah.
And the growth happens through to seniors, when we're then putting on a full-scale production at Theatre 7. And if you're in the senior group, you're part of that full-scale production at Theatre 7. Up until that point, you're probably doing street theatre and also productions at the Hive, which is where we're based.
Shout out to the Hive, doing great things for.
Absolutely, we love them.
Love the Hive. I've got a bad past with the Hive. It's not their fault though. It was a very embarrassing situation where Shane Chebsey was. He was putting together Comic Salopia, and it was right at the beginning of it was kind of near the beginning of the Biscuit, and he was like, right, I'm going to organise this interview with some of the biggest comic book artists and writers around, and we're going to set up this huge interview, and we're going to do it at the Hive. And so I sat around at this table. You had John Wagner, who created Judge Dredd. You had Charlie Adlard. You had Robbie Morrison. You had all these amazing. And I'm sat there like, right, let's do this. And we did this interview. It sounded amazing, but somebody left the aircon on, and it throughout the whole audio. So I still haven't never been able to fix that audio. But yeah, I love the Hive very much for what they do. That was my fault for not checking my audio.
We have the same difficulty with when we're doing theatre.
Yeah.
And that when we have to ensure the fact that it has to get switched off, otherwise we'll never hear the students.
There's nothing worse than a gentle hiss of your, I love coffee shops, the clinking and the coffee machine even in the background, but that was gentle hiss, it ruins it all.
One of the big differences, and it's one of the great disciplines that they truly do learn as part when they get to production at Theatre 7, is that they need to be silent.
Yes.
If you're doing musical theatre, you can cheat, because when the music is playing and everyone's making a lot of noise backstage, you can raise the noise a little bit backstage. With drama, there is no way you can do that. And that's one of the greatest disciplines they learn, is how to communicate with each other without actually saying
it's the toughest thing. For teenagers, it's the toughest thing.
So for the first we're going to teach you Marketon.
I always say they don't want to see the purple dragon come alive. So.
I've been there. I'm working with the guys from Rocking Horse. I was recording a vlog throughout the whole day that they were recording, filming the production they made for Izzy versus Jess. And it was at Derwent College, and there's a bell on the desk, and I was like, oh, I'll tell you what I'm going to do, guys. I'm going to press this bell once. And the sound engineer, she was like, don't you dare, not when I'm recording. She was like, I will hit you with this, Mike. And it was really funny.
And of course, that's one of the things they do. We don't use mics.
Yes.
Any other musical theatre company will use microphones on the students. So the students really do learn to project. So I've been I interviewed Kyle from KG Theatre. I always mention this because very small production company, because he just moved into Shrewsbury last year, and within 4 or 5 months they had a production. They did Beauty and the Beast. It was fantastic, and it was in a sports hall in Sundawn. They didn't have a fancy set, but they just blew everyone away, brought the community together, and these guys, they stood and they sung, and they didn't have microphones, and when an actress stands and sings and projects herself to shake the walls, it's really quite astounding to see and witness, and that's why I was like, right, I need to speak to this guy, because he's turned a sports hall into an enchanted kingdom with this, and I love that. I love that you can take young minds and create something like that. It's the chill up the spine as an audience, and that's when you know. That's when you know it works. And we have a young girl singing in Tempest next week. And I think she's going to bring a few chills to spines, because she's got an amazing voice.
I wish I could sing.
Really, really beautiful.
Oh.
Yeah.
I can't wait for this. But what was your first production together then? Because I got that wrong with the Caucasian Shark Circle. What was your first one together?
Roses of Ian.
Let's go back to that, Andrew. What was that like as a production for you? Well,
it was lovely. Because I was doing all sorts of different things at that time. And when Maggie came up to me and said, would you like to help with this production of Roses of Ian? I didn't know quite what to expect. For one thing, although I knew Maggie well, and she'd been in, as she said, one of my productions, and I knew about her wonderful record in dance and her status as a dance historian and so on. I was very ignorant about what she wanted to do. And the wonderful thing about Roses of Ian, as far as I was concerned, was that we were both, in a sense, feeling our way with each other in the production. And gradually I gained in confidence as to what I could do. And it was a superb, I think, production in the end, wasn't it? We had great fun, and it was very successful.
Well, it's such an incredibly powerful story to tell. So there was one poignant memory I have of it is that, so it's a real story, real life story of the plague hitting a village in Derbyshire, and they isolated themselves to protect the rest of the country.
Excuse me.
They believe. There's a beautiful love story within it. So I wanted to set up a coach trip to go to Derbyshire to visit the village. And anyway, for various reasons, it didn't work out. I think we had a really heavy snowfall that winter. But a lot of the students did make the effort with their parents to go. And they came back and they said, well, I stood in the graveyard and then I found my character's name on a gravestone. And it really brought it home to them. So we did quite a lot of talking about death and how to process that, and shared all of our different emotions, so that when it came to the production, students would come off stage and they go, "Are you dead yet?" And it worked. It worked. It's a wonderful, powerful story.
It is.
And we introduced technology, if you remember. It was a big, big thing. We introduced projection.
Yes.
Because Jonathan Tritton was in town still.
That's right.
And I took Jonathan up to Eyam, and we did lots of photographs of the village, because there's not a lot changed in that village, and we used those images and doctored them a little bit, but as part of the backdrop to set the scene and to tell the story, the power of the story. And of course, when the pandemic first hit, the parallels of the story of Eyam were made around the country, where people were making that understand, because we were talking in the same language that they had been talking all those years ago.
It's funny how things come about, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And speaking of COVID, I think that's a great segue. Is obviously before COVID, we were none the wiser of what was going to happen. So you make plans, you make arrangements for productions, which obviously take a lot of time, a lot of effort.
Gosh.
Don't tell me. Don't tell me. I mean,
Andrew's shaking his head. He's like,
well, it was pretty tragic, really, in a sense, because apart from the directing, I also write quite a lot and have written for television and things. But I'd written an adaptation of Thomas Hardy's wonderful novel, Far from the Madding Crowd, and it was an amazing thing to see that take shape. And there are some fantastic parts in it for everybody, but the main character is a woman called Bathsheba, and this was, to my astonishment, and I think probably to Maggie's as well, taken by a girl who'd never actually played a starring role with us before, and she said, "I'd like to do it." She was the only one who actually said that, and we gave it to her, and she learned these phenomenal amount of lines and grew into the part. And I was so looking forward to seeing her on the stage, as I'm sure she was as well. And then a fortnight before we were actually due to perform it, down came the lockdown. And so we were struck. And it was pretty tragic, really. And all I could do was write to her and say, "I'm so sorry, you would have been brilliant as Bathsheba." And sweetly she wrote back and said, "Well, thank you so much for saying that. That means a lot." And off she went to the rest of her life, as they all do when they leave us. But
so heartbreaking.
It was heartbreaking.
It really was. But we very quickly picked up on the Zoom concept, and we set up Zoom calls with each other. The first time, I'll never forget getting onto Zoom with 20 plus young people, and as their little visuals came up, their faces lit up as they saw each other, because of course we'd all been in that complete isolation and shutdown, and the joy started to come back into their faces as they started talking and relating to each other. And I just let them have social time in that way, and then eventually we discussed what we might do. I had a proposal in mind, and we managed to get a little bit of funding to ensure the fact that those students that didn't have equipment, so most students only had a phone, and when you're working on Zoom, that's not easy. So we managed to get a couple of iPads together so that students could communicate with each other on a weekly basis. And we continued these Zoom calls. And the first project we did was Shakespeare monologues. And I brought a couple of RSC directors in, yourself, Paul Higgins locally, various people that I knew within the business that
Yes.
could work with the students independently, find their own time. And then once the directors and the student were comfortable with their monologue, they would then record it. And that's all on YouTube. We created a YouTube channel, and all of those wonderful monologues, all of those that wanted to go out public, are out on that YouTube channel. So then we discussed within the committee as to what to do next. And it had always been that after Far From the Madding Crowd, we would then do Romeo and Juliet. We'd always said that would be possibly one play that we would never do because it's so focused on Romeo and Juliet. But we figured that we would find a way of doing it. And when it came to doing it over Zoom, we had 3 different sets of Romeo and Juliet. So the 3 acts then had their each Romeo and Juliet. And of course that worked in the technology. And we managed to fudge almost everything in that, how do you make it look like these 2 individuals are in the same room together? Because the student explained to us how you change the backdrop. Yes? So if you take a photograph of something and then you jigsaw it up, each of the students had their own piece of the jigsaw, and sometimes they might be just playing the piece of scenery, or they might be the actor with the backdrop behind them as well. But then the whole picture was made up of 6 pieces to make the picture, but only 2 heads. Is that, yeah?
Yeah.
So we set it in Shrewsbury, and we kept it in lockdown. And I kept saying, at some point or other, we're going to be able to do a masked ball. We're really going to be able to do it. So having made it in 2021, we managed to do all the scenes without any fighting. So we talked about the fighting, because obviously we couldn't get together. You couldn't touch each other. We just talked about it. We just, said, oh, so-and-so happened at the fight. So Andrew, again, adapted the classical text. And we were coming out of lockdown last summer for the first time, still wearing masks with all our different social distancing going on. So we managed to find a huge big space at the museum here, massive space. Andy McEwen, bless his heart, came in, did
Andy.
big immersive light for us, and we created Romeo and Juliet's masked ball.
I saw that. I saw the pictures.
Now, those students, those teenagers, had never had a prom the year before. They hadn't had a prom that year. So what did they get to wear to the ball?
Their prom dresses. Oh, it's beautiful.
It was very still masked and still socially distanced, but it was really we made sure they all had a special photograph. So they all had their own individual photograph done, all dressed up. Very special.
Yeah, it's still. I mean, it's great. It was just an alien world.
It was.
It's something that we all had to get used to, though. We had to try and adapt and change things. And this is kind of like where we sort of fit in with the biscuit, as I wanted to show people how the world was adapting, especially with charities and with companies, and how people were doing differently. I wish I'd have helped you guys with the Zoom stuff, because I reckon I could have helped. Because
that would,
we do.
It never happens again, let's say. But
yeah.
So when we started Tempest, we all agreed that we would, instead of having everybody together every single week, meaning that everybody had to test before we came to rehearsal, that only those that were called for that particular rehearsal would come in person, and everybody else would be on Zoom. And then if by chance anybody was sick, and believe me, that's happened a lot in the last 6 months, the voice from the laptop would come out with their lines, but they'd be watching the rehearsal. So when they next came to do that scene, at least they've got an idea of where they should be, even if they hadn't rehearsed it in person, but they'd been a part of the rehearsal. And that's how we pulled everything together until February half term. And that was the first time this company for the Tempest all came together. So just a few weeks ago. Wow.
I imagine that's it's quite an immense moment, because obviously the trials and tribulations we've all had over the last 2 years, but never mind the arts and there's the situations that have been going on there. It's been a huge struggle for a lot of people. I've spoken to a lot of actors, the performance groups of it. I spoke to the Viv Kelly Dance School, and they were talking about how they were putting dance routines together, and the timing for Zoom just didn't work. It doesn't work. There's that delay, isn't there? That lag.
Always. we did the run through on Sunday. Our musical director sadly got COVID, so he was playing the music through the Zoom, and there was this slight delay every time I said, you've got to predict it. Well, of course, that's really hard, isn't it, when you're not in the room.
So post-COVID now, or say post, it still exists. I mean, like there's a lot of stuff going on.
Very much. We're very much aware of it.
I've done a test today because obviously I'm still very conscious about coming out. So I made a point to take a picture of my test this morning just to show you guys, because it is still existing. I know there's lots going on that people talk about Will Smith and they're talking about Ukraine and all the, I mean, the stuff in Ukraine is terrible, don't get me wrong, but it's just, you can't distract ourselves the fact that we can't get complacent with this. I'm glad that we're going to get this performance from you guys.
It's really hard, isn't it? You don't really want to say it, but I am sort of confident that because most of the students, and this is sad, but most of the students have had COVID in the last couple of weeks, that we should be okay next week. But
you're always going to be apprehensive. You're always going to...
We're still holding, and yes, I'm making sure we've all got test kits, and they have been amazing. I know they're taking good care. And bear in mind, these students come from all over Shropshire. This isn't just Shrewsbury-based students. They are literally coming from all over the county.
They astonish me. Their enthusiasm, their determination, their tolerance of the amazing things that are asked of them, not just what we're asking them to do, perform Shakespeare to a high standard, that's big enough. But they're also doing mock exams. They've also got huge amounts of pressure from their schools.
Yes.
And we forget, we can't, for instance, see them in the theatre. Even in the last week, the week of production, we can't see them till they've finished their school day. They arrive having done a whole school day's work.
Yes, and they're exhausted.
And they're exhausted. And somehow, Maggie is particularly good at this. We condition them to get ready for a performance. And it's a fantastic effort for them. I remember going into a dressing room once on a dress rehearsal the night before the first performance and finding the entire room swatting away because they had a mock exam the next day.
And they've been homeschooled.
And they were revising for that exam, I just thought, my God, that's the life they lead.
And it's worse right now because they've had 2 years off from that kind of pressure.
Exactly.
And the pressure's even greater because they've lost they're out of practice.
Yeah.
Yes.
So my heart really goes out to these young people, but I'm so thankful for their commitment because they've got an incredible production. And I want to say Prospero, because our Prospero, I mean, the quantity of lines that he has.
Phenomenal.
He really is. He's a stunning young man. And come and see this show just because of the commitment that these young people have put out there.
Can we talk about the show?
Yes, absolutely. There's a cat attack in my mixer right now. I can just imagine her pressing stop. That's it. There you go. You're lovely, but you're a pest. I'm joking. So the 6th and 7th, as this podcast is going out, you guys have only got 2 days to go out and buy tickets. Tickets are £16 for adults. Under 18s are £10. Under theatre £7. Are you excited?
Very.
Yeah.
Are we what? Sorry.
Excited.
Oh, of course we are.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
How is I know it's not happened yet, but the feedback, is there a buzz about the airs? Are you selling tickets fast? How's that going?
Sadly, no. It's the first time that SYT is looking at low ticket sales. We normally almost have completely sold out the second show by now, and we're not even at half. So we really need an audience. I think students deserve it.
Oh, yes.
They do. They do deserve it. And please, if you've not thought of coming to see us before, I think our reputation should precede us. I mean, we won all sorts of awards, both nationally. Once, funnily enough, the last time we did the Tempest, which was 12 years ago, something like that. Because it's such a wonderful play, I think it's the only one we've actually done twice. It's the only time we've
repeated, yeah.
And we took it round the country.
Wow.
In a version, I had to rapidly reduce it to under an hour. It's not a long play anyway, but I had to work on that
Compact it a little bit,
version
yeah.
in order to go in for the competition that we went into, a national drama competition. And we won all sorts of awards for that. The town council has given us special awards. And, I think we reach an amazingly high standard of production. And the students deserve that support. Every show, I think Maggie will confirm this because she works in the theatre, every show has poor ticket sales at the moment. Everybody's anxious about coming.
I think it's a mixture between people being apprehensive about coming out, obviously with the COVID concerns, but also I feel like it's like when it comes to the arts and where it comes to stand-up comedy, music, festivals, it's been a bit like a spring, a coiled spring. Everything's been held back. Now this summer, this spring, it's just gone. There's festivals every weekend. There's events going on everywhere. There's so much going on. It's saturated things a little bit. Sorry, I keep kicking your table. But I feel like you need to support your local acts. You need to support, especially something as wonderful as this. These kids have had such a hard time that I feel like they do deserve. I mean, a £16 a ticket is not that bad. It's really reasonable.
And I can promise you, you're going to enjoy Shakespeare.
Yeah.
And oh boy, what a story this is!
It's a wonderful story.
It's a very special story, and we feel it's actually very poignant again to today.
Absolutely,
on what's going on.
It's a story for our times, really, because it starts looking out as though it's going to be a revenge play, and Shakespeare's written some pretty bloody revenge plays in his time. And very briefly, Prospero was the Duke of Milan, or Milan as it's pronounced in the play, and he was usurped. He was thrown out. He and his little daughter were put on the sea, and everybody thought they would drown, by his brother, of all people, who he sort of trusted.
It's like Game of Thrones.
It's very Game of Thronesy, absolutely. And he, by luck and by the help of one of the old councillors who put various things on this little boat so that they could survive for a bit, he and his daughter managed to land on this desert island. And for 12 years they've been there. And during those 12 years, his little daughter has grown into a beautiful young woman. And he, Prospero, has perfected his magic arts. And he has a most amazing power now. And purely by luck, his enemies, who threw him out, have sailed into his power. Accidentally. They don't know that he's on the island, and so they didn't realise that when their ship passed by, he could do something. And so he plans the most terrible revenge on those who nearly all tried to kill him and his daughter. And then it changes in the course of the play. I'm not going to tell you how.
No spoilers.
You don't know that, but there's a
300-year-old play.
there's a wonderful transformation at the climax of the plot when the whole thing changes, and there's a whole range of characters, including some very funny ones. So it's
that's what I love about Shakespeare. There's always the sinister plot, but there's always that one character that will just lighten things up a little bit, you know.
That's right.
Well, that's what we're hoping is going to happen in the world right now, is that one character that will transform what's going on now.
And the message at the end is one of love and hope, which are two qualities we rather desperately need at the moment, I think.
Well, there's something going on in Shrewsbury right now and around the world. Like Shrewsbury, so we have Joe Whale, which is a doodle boy, and he's just been signed up with Nike to do this huge campaign with Nindy, who does the drums. So there was a drum battle between Dave Grohl of Foo Fighters, by the way, R.I.P. to Taylor Hawkins, the drummer from Foo Fighters. I'll start on that. But anyway, there was a drum battle between Dave Grohl and Indy, and they did this amazing thing. It blew up. Obviously, Doodle Boy is blown up as well. So for all this chaos, for everything that's going bad, Shrewsbury has got these, and Indy as well is not in Shrewsbury. Well, they have these young people that are just bringing out brightness and colour in this world of chaos. So I think, there are shining stars out there that are trying to bring us through, And this play, you're right, is kind of a metaphor, isn't it, for the 2 years that we've had, and I like that. I think it's really good.
Good, yeah.
Yeah, well, we like doing that. That's the beauty of theatre.
If you're listening to this podcast now, have a look in your schedule. Have a think about this, and if you do buy tickets, just on the power of hearing it on the podcast, just drop me a line. Let me know. I want to know if we've helped out a little bit. And if you're at the Theatre 7 on the 6th or the 7th, make sure you find Maggie or yourself, Andrew, and come say hello. Congratulate you guys on the work, and so, make sure you let these kids know that they've done a great job, because that's what to take that and move on in life, I think, is very, very rewarding. How can people buy tickets, Maggie?
Straight to Theatre 7. It's either via their website or give the box office a call at 01743 281 281, or go straight online. That's the easiest way to do it. Then it'll come through on your phone as an e-ticket, and that's what you show to be scanned at the door.
Brilliant. It was a great...
Turn up on the day, of course.
Turn up on the day. Buy a ticket. Buy one online. Bring up, do it the old-fashioned box office way. But bring the kids out, have a great evening at the theatre. And hopefully, I'd love to come if I can. I'll get a ticket, and we'll be there. So on the opening evening on the 6th, I'm going to come by. Maggie, what are you guys working on after this? Is this just a time to relax now? It must have been difficult, especially the last couple of years. What comes after this for you, Andrew?
Well, if Lisa and SYT want me to help in the future in some small way, then I'm very happy to do that. One of the things I enjoy doing is working 1-to-1 or 1-to-2 with 1 or 2 students, and Zoom actually has opened up this opportunity greatly. I've been doing quite a lot of work with Prospero, the young chap who's playing Prospero, on Zoom, partly because he lives out near Oswestry and partly because it's safer.
Yes.
And there is quite a lot you can do on Zoom to rehearse. Mm-hmm. Not everything. And the important bits are when he's on the stage and with the other characters, obviously. But it's opened up the possibility of that. So that's something I'm happy to do. But I've got lots of projects, as it were, that I can get on with. Now, once I'm not working for SYT, which is quite consuming, as you can imagine, particularly at this time as we come up to performance.
I just started at a new local radio station, which I will get out and properly announce very soon. But I don't like to tempt fate or whatever. But when it comes to recording content, I spent a good day in the studio yesterday. But the guys are waiting for me to sort of start pumping out shows and getting really involved. But I'm having to close a few doors, so USUC I'm stepping away from for a bit. There are things I'm not going to be doing anymore so that I can accommodate this new radio. It's great when you can, even if something you love, like USUC that I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I love doing. I love speaking to people from around the world. Culture is amazing, but I need to concentrate on this one thing before I can do this, Mm-hmm. So to close one door and open a few others must feel good.
Yes, it does. It feels right. I'm very confident that SYT will go on growing and developing and being a great thing for young people. And it's great to have worked with Maggie and Beverly and Lisa and all the other people who've helped. But stopping the responsibility that one has will free me up to do certain things, perhaps writing and and working on one or two other things, performances myself.
Well, you have the support from the Biscuit, so if you're working on something and you need a voice, we have a voice.
That's very useful. Thank you.
Maggie, what are you going to be concentrating on after this?
So let's clarify here. We talk about the word work, but we've actually volunteered our time for the last 17 years.
Yes.
So just like you, Alex, we volunteer.
With a passion.
Absolutely, yeah, with lots of love and all that. Well, Chris Eldenley and I have got a production company of Lovely Productions, and Jabs is still touring at the moment. So
I haven't seen this yet. I need to make sure I see it.
So it's happening again at Theatre 7 in a couple of weeks, so we'll have to get you on that one.
Constant party in Shrewsbury.
And then Chris has also got Winter Holiday on the back burner at the moment, so we're going to be producing that next year, but we'll start rehearsals with that later on this year. And I've got a couple of other productions that I will be helping produce already this summer. I generally do about 8 productions a year, so let's hope it all comes back. I've also got a festival in mind for next year that I'm also beavering away at. So there's always things going on, always.
We should write a Shrewsbury Biscuit musical. I have a voice, but no one can hear me. That'd be really fun. I've got a young one. If someone's got a young one, they see a potential in with theatre. How do they enrol their child into SYT?
So you go to the website, get our contact details, or you find us on our Facebook or any of the social media sites. We're actually all right there. SYT or Shropshire Youth Theatre, and all the contact details are right there.
Fantastic. Do you know, I've loved this. I've been badgering Maggie, poking her with a stick, like, come on the biscuit. And I'm glad we've finally done this, because it's been an absolute pleasure. And you're welcome on any time, both of you guys. It's been really, when it comes to culture and theatre and the arts, I love doing this, because I can't playwright, I can't sing, I can't play an instrument, I can't, all of these things. I reckon I make a great Bill Sykes. I make a good villain, but that's probably about it. But so to talk about it is a real honour and privilege. So thank you very much.
Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.
No, it's been awesome. I want to give you guys a pointer towards our website as well, which is the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast.co.uk. All of our content is available on there. You can just press play off the website and you can listen to it from the website. That's if you don't want to listen to us on Spotify or iTunes or Podbean, wherever you get your... we're going to be moving from Podbean, by the way, soon. We're not going to be doing it there because there's an opportunity to have all of my content in one place. So keep your ears peeled for notifications on that. But we'll still go to all the usual places. And yes, thank you so much for tuning in. I need to mention our website is made by Web Orchard as well. If you need a website, guys, Web Orchard do a great job at creating websites. All right, let's get out of here. This has been lovely. Thank you for chatting to me. Thank you for listening, and we'll catch you next time. Peace out.